whatever. Oh, that's good. That's good. People are talking.
So hello everyone, I think we can begin.
Yep.
Welcome to the press conference of the European Robotics Forum 2016. There we have 6 speakers today with us, and they will talk about the trends, the possibilities, what is pushing the robotics these days, also about the role of the regions, of the member states, of the Commission, the Parliament, and what is the presidency doing. I hope you are not too tired after the opening ceremony. So each of the speakers has 2 or 3 minutes, and then the floor is open for the journalists to ask questions. Thank you. So the first one is Bernd Lieper, the president of the Eurobotics. Then Reinhard Lafrent, the Secretary General of the Eurobotics. Following by Juha Heikkila from the DG Connect of the European Commission. Mehdi Delvaux, who is a member of the European Parliament. Then we have Marco Marcola, the president of the Committee of the Regions, and Mr. Jasper Wesseling from the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs. So Bernd, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming and showing up the interest in the European robotics. I don't want to do the speech again, I just did, but giving you a couple of statements, I think I would like to address robotics and the community, and therefore one big topic is today talking about digitalization. In Germany it's Industry 4.0, worldwide it's Internet of Things and big data and machine learning, and the big threats coming out of this that perhaps robots will overtake and overrun the humans in the near future. My statement is that beside of all these wonderful technologies, we should not forget that robotics, that's really mechatronics, that we need additional development and research on the component side, on the sensors, on the technologies. That's something we have to add, and we have to make the robots safer. We have to get them out of the cage, because one of the big mega trends we have to address in Europe, and that's something people normally don't want to talk about too much. Globalization, that's fine. In globalization we can talk about the wonderful car industry, but in the aging society and over-aging workforce, I think that's a topic we really have to address, we have to concentrate on, and therefore we need a good explanation of the use case, how to make robots useful for the humans in the future, and how to get these systems developed. I think that's the big topic, the big target for the European robotics industries and all these supporters of robotics.
Thank you, Mr. Lieper. Mr. Lafrent.
So, thank you. I can just follow on what Bernd Lieper told you. So, our association aims at exactly these issues. On the one hand, we have the user-driven needs. We need to identify what is needed not only in the manufacturing environment, but also in the broader societal environment, in healthcare, in everyday life, and so on. And these requirements need to define the technological requirements which are needed, and on the other hand, bottom up, so to say, we have the technology which is developed by part of our members. Our members are both from industrial side and from the academic side. And so we have many new ideas, many new innovations, many new technologies which are in a different technological readiness level, how it is called. So on the one hand, you have the lab prototypes, and one of the big goals of the association in total and the community in total is to bring these wonderful research and early prototype stage work into the practice and put it later on stage in everyday life, on the shop floor, in the working environment. And this is something which we try to promote through events like this here in Ljubljana, but also to more public events like the Robotics Week, which is trying to reach out down to the kindergarten age. Because in the future generation of engineers, they need to already be in contact with the technology from the early years on. And covering all this is a major part of the association's work.
So we should start with the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Haikila, what about the European Commission?
Thank you. So it's been already stated, those who attended the opening ceremony will have heard that robotics is essential for productivity and competitiveness. It's also essential in order for us to address some of the societal changes we have. Aging workforce, aging population was mentioned by Rupert and many others. This is another key aspect. The advance in technology has set in motion a process of digitalization which affects all walks of life. It has enormous economic potential, and in order to maximize the benefits of this digital growth and the growth of digital industries, we in Europe have to make sure that we have certain elements in place. So we have to make sure that we maintain excellence, we maintain leadership in the technology. And here we see the need to have the right kind of what we call platforms, but also testing environments and experimentation facilities. All this technology and leadership in technology and, let's say, the ownership of the know-how in Europe, which is currently very good, but it has to be maintained and it requires constant work. This doesn't help us if we don't grant access to that technology to our companies, to our citizens. Therefore, we need to enable and make sure that this technology is as widely accessible as possible. Therefore, we think that there should be these centers, innovation hubs, which create the necessary conditions for access so that people can go and test the solution, can develop solutions, and that this excellence can be propagated further. This kind of a development requires also that we have the appropriate regulatory framework in place, which does not stifle innovation but enables digitalization, but on the other hand then safeguards certain aspects like safety and regulates to the extent necessary or not, depending on what the right balance is, the use and ownership of data and liability, safety, etc. And finally, this landscape means that this presents challenges then to the skills environment. So people, the workforce, will need to perhaps be more flexible. They need to perhaps have different set of skills from today. They certainly need some digital skills, but the advance of technology also makes it important for them to be able to reskill if necessary in order to be prepared for the future labor market.
Thank you very much. Madame Delvaux, you're going to talk about legal barriers for robotics in Europe. So do we have an appropriate legislative framework?
As Mr. Hacker just said, we need, I believe we need a legal framework in order to allow robotics to develop in the European Union. This framework has not to be too strict but flexible enough because it's a very fast evolving technology. And in the European Parliament we have a working group which discusses exactly these issues. Liability, contract law, data protection, ownership of data, but also intellectual property questions, and the ethical implications of robotics. I believe that it is important for us that we insist that robots should be friend of humans and that they should be user-friendly but also citizen-friendly because they are European values we want to defend. So we will come out in the Parliament hopefully soon with a report with recommendations on the legal framework but also on the ethical principle recommendations to create ethical committees, for instance, and some principles on how robotics should evolve.
And can you give us a time frame?
Well, I am chairing this working group, and well, I'm quite happy that the interest in robotics is raising. That means that many people come in now with their ideas and their proposals. But I want to present a report in May, end of May, and after that launch a public consultation and discussion. So the discussion will not be over in May, but it will really start on the basis of a text.
Thank you very much. Mr. Markola, on the regions.
Yeah, I take the strong regional perspective here. And then first stating that practically close to all regions in Europe have their own smart specialization strategy, innovation strategy, what should be done there. And each has then maybe 5, maximum 10 priorities. So if we have 200 these and then in each of them 5 to 10 priorities, so digitalization and innovation are practically everywhere. And that means kind of all per meeting, going through everything. And then on that we need these concrete examples, what can be done, what should be speeded up so that in many, and that should be that I'm challenging as well these experts of robotics and the EU robotics, the big SPARV initiative with industry, so that go more to talk with your regional political decision makers, kind of opening up that what they can do on their region. And then we can do that in Brussels as well, Committee of the Region as the EU institution being the voice of cities and regions. So we can do that jointly with the Commission and commissioners, take this in concrete terms and then have more kind of a bottom up. And I would say, since we had already here said the importance of having prototypes and take them in active use. So our key message is as well, so we need more experimenting and piloting so that some of the European regions form partnerships, strong partnerships, building this critical mass. So maybe 10, 20, 30, 50 regions can operate on these issues more together throughout Europe and then scale the results up to other parts of Europe as well. We do our share on that. We link this very strongly to a smart city development, the role of cities to encouraging this kind of innovative development. Since robotics, it's not only manufacturing, it's throughout the different services, it's healthcare, agriculture, traffic, etc. So that makes a lot of sense on speeding this up. We have, in the Dutch presidency, we have a special forum in Amsterdam jointly with the Dutch on the renewal of the EU urban agenda, along with the ministerial meeting there. And there, these topics, how we can speed up and implement this smart city development is crucial. We link that then to the next EU presidency with the Slovaks. We have a big summit, close to 1,000 people coming to Bratislava 8th and 9th of July, where we kind of talk about connecting different things, energy, strategic investments, traffic again, what is the role of people, what is the role of cities, and with many commissioners, so we can show some of these examples, kind of showcasing, experimenting again there as well.
Thank you. Mr. Pisseling?
Yes, I'm here coming from the Netherlands Ministry of Economic Affairs, also as part of the current presidency of the European Union. And in our presidency, the digitization of the economy and smart industry is one of the priorities. So therefore, we think this is an important issue. And also, we have a very positive view on the effects and virtues of robotics. So we have a very positive view, considering that for every robot there is usually 3 more jobs, considering that there are quite a number of studies that indicate that it can bring to Europe over $1 trillion in economic growth in the coming 9 to 10 years. So that makes it a very positive economic force. However, we should also not neglect the fact that it will bring changes within the economy and maybe even within the social fabric. So therefore, our call upon the robotics industry is to itself get out of the cage and engage with other industries and with the health sector and agriculture. That being said, a number of previous speakers have also mentioned that this has implications also for the governments, not only in the field of skills and technology, but also in the field of regulation. Namely, we should be much more modest and flexible in the regulations that we have in Europe on EU and national and even regional level, because it's impossible to keep pace with all the technological developments. So we should put it on another field, much more on outcome and not prescribing every detail.
Thank you very much. Now the floor is open for the journalists. If there are any questions?
Are there any journalists?
Yeah, there are, and more of them are, around filming the lecture, the speakers, and so on. So if not, I have one question. The focus of the conference will also be on the robotics innovation hubs. So perhaps can you say something about that and maybe the role of Slovenia in this respect? Would you start?
Okay, there are some prototypical innovation hubs already from previous projects, and the European Commission, correct me if I'm wrong, is massively going into this regional thing. And from my personal experience, I learned through previous projects that there is a need for a pan-European cooperation, but also it's especially important when you want to attract the small and medium-sized enterprises to have a local cooperation where you can speak your local languages, where you have short ways, where you can really physically meet from time to time, and a radius of about 200 kilometers seems to be a reasonable region where you have the possibility to team up in a regular way based on the actual cooperation work. And people are hesitant traveling for more than this distance, and especially when it goes abroad in other countries where there are language barriers, then a typical SME would avoid going there, even if there is funding available for this.
Broader base of technologies and innovations, and we were really happy that with the Horizon 2020 program, especially the innovation part was added to the research and development funding we already got before, and innovation means really bringing these products and new ideas, bringing it to the users, and therefore the innovation hubs, they give us a chance to concentrate on local requirements from the user side, but on the other side to collect all the entrepreneurs in Europe in the different innovation hubs and to bring them together working on the virtual network. And I think if you take a look on Silicon Valley in the US, how this worked out, and I think if we would do it in a more intelligent way, not only pumping money into the regions, but combining them and making them working together in this kind of network, I think that's a big task of our organization. We really could create a robot valley through all the innovation centers in Europe.
You mentioned Silicon Valley, but on the other side you're also going to talk about Western Balkans at the forum later on. Perhaps can you add something on this from the European Parliament or in the Committee of the Region?
Well, specifically, perhaps what I can say about the innovation hubs is that the promise there is for the Western Balkans, as any other region, simply that it gives the opportunity for smaller companies, particularly SMEs, to get to know technology. It's actually a stunningly low percentage of SMEs, I think it's only a few percent, which are up to date on the possibilities that robotics and digitalization have. So these robotics innovation hubs give local companies, small companies, which are by definition local, at least to begin with, that gives them the opportunity to make their production and make their activities more efficient. It helps their productivity. It enables them to then gain advantages that they wouldn't otherwise get. So we see this as a key link in bringing technology to the users of technology, be they SMEs or medium-sized companies. And this is something that would have to be stimulated in the regions. And the point that Dr. Liepert mentioned about the coordination or cooperation of these regions, and these hubs, is very important. We strongly support that in the Commission. We think it's very important for these specialized hubs then to talk to each other and complement each other. And this way you can then get support from other regions. So if you have a certain specialization, say here in the Western Balkans, then in other areas you have another kind of specialization. At some point, talking to each other is going to be beneficial.
In the European Parliament, we make only a recommendation. And but I have to insist that in our group there is one concern. This is accessibility and the question of equity. If regions, complete regions, are left aside, then we cannot. Well, it is not in the spirit of the ever closer union and the solidarity between member states and between regions. So we have to insist that, well, we make a recommendation and we insist that this cooperation between regions should be strengthened, that there should be, if possible, hubs in all the regions and not leave, be it Western Balkan, but also some other parts of the European Union out of the movement.
So this innovation hub in every region goal was stated by Commissioner Oettinger in his speech at Hanover last year in April. So this is very much a way of stimulating then the economic activity in the region. This is achieved by the Commission.
And this actually happens. So there are several European projects which now look into how new regions can be approached, and there is one initiative, I4MS, which is another combined funding between two units, and they actually put a lot of money in it. There will be kind of open call for concepts in several regions. This is currently in the planning and early stages in this phase. And also here in Slovenia, there are, for example, living labs and a toolmakers cluster, which is active and part of this project, and they are also teaming up with others and try to replicate what they have in other regions through several projects.
Yeah, I'll just add that encouraging regions and cities take these concrete measures, so that's one of our concrete priorities, the Committee of the Regions, because we have as our members are the mayors or regional presidents, so we are kind of exactly now going through that, asking them to provide evidence what kind of innovation ecosystems they have, and so how to link that to different sectors and how to do this kind of matchmaking so that cities and regions with a similar interest could do more together. And there again, so much is about the funding as well. So it cannot only be the EU funding, it always needs to be public funding locally, private funding locally, but then as well, many of these regions, they have these cohesion funds, so structural regional development funds, so they can do that. I was a couple of weeks ago in Bucharest, and they're just outside Bucharest, they are developing this, what they call the laser valleys. It's light infrastructure development integrated to a research center that has been existing already originally from the end of 40s, but now updating and already having a lot of international researchers coming then because they are investing. Now they made the decisions to invest 300 million, this cohesion funding on that. And then other funding as well, but it's a big investment, and we need big and smaller investments, and there the Commission can definitely help these different sectors, kind of a networking effect.
Thank you very much. One question?
Yeah, like a freelance journalist, I would like to know what kind of experts are actually working on the robotics legislation framework. Who is present and who is not? Are there just lawyers and politicians, or are there any actual experts?
Yes, we are not experts. We are representing citizens of the European Union. And you know that European Parliament has not the right of initiative. So we can only make recommendations for the Commission to prepare legislation. And we are, for the moment, we are inviting experts, lawyers, but also researchers, different lawyers, company lawyers, civil lawyers to explain the big challenges. And after that, when we have finished our report, it goes to the Commission, and then the Commission hopefully comes forward with legislation.
You said you won't be very strict with it. Can you be more concrete on what kind of limits you would be proposing to the European Commission? There would be any limits of robotics use?
Yes, but the first question we discussed is, do we need one regulation of robots or not? And we came to the conclusion that there will be not one regulation about robots, because this is very specific to different sectors. For instance, we think that on the most urgent thing would be to regulate the flight, how the drones are allowed to fly on what
Territory?
no, altitude, what altitude? Because we assisted to a lot of some accidents with drones. Then you have the driverless cars where we have to put to see what will be allowed, what will be the driver, will there be a driver anymore? And then you have the question of liability, which is for all kinds, because when you have these connected robots, then you have to make clear who is liable for what part of if an accident happens. Then recommendations on maybe insurance about fund, an insurance fund. And then there are other issues which are where it is too early to regulate, because we don't know what will be the evolution and the developments but the liability, contract law is urgent, and we have to look at the data protection. So because we have to define ownership and who has access, and the principle of proportionality, and how long you can keep the data, and all these questions. Because robots, we cannot. There will be no Internet of Things if there is not a sharing of data, but nevertheless we have to assure a certain proportionality that not everyone can access all the data.
One aspect to add to this, which is that there is a fair amount of existing legislation, of course, already, which the Commission is looking at. The Commission has, in this internal division of labour between the EU institutions, has the right of initiative, so can make legislative initiatives, and of course we are also enforcing EU legislation. And there are a number of directives, for example, like the General Product Liability Directive or the Machinery Directive, which have bearing on robotics. And some of the existing legislation may or may not be fit for purpose. So that depends, and it's a relatively complex landscape in that sense. So it's not as if we're starting from scratch, and there's absolutely nothing there. There's a fair amount of legislation, and some of that may need to be revised. Others may be fit for purpose, but this is work which is ongoing.
Thank you very much. We are now rounding up the discussion, and two lectures follow: robotics in Slovenia with Dr. Marko Muni, he was here, and robotics in the Western Balkans with Dr. Has. And we also have an exhibition with robotic tools through the Slovenian National Gallery. Thank you very much.